We've got some big things afoot over here in One Piece, brothers and sisters, and I, for one, am very, very excited for what's to come. And I thank you for joining me on this journey.
233 chapters of One Piece we have covered. The world's greatest power. This is...
Well, hello, my brothers and sisters of the Nerd Nation. I, as always, am Jim, here to bring you another review on the awesome, the tantalizing, the epic, and masterfully woven tale of One Piece. Our last chapter, of course, saw us with really, for me, one of the most satisfying moments thus far in the story, and that would be the build-up of hatred that I truly felt towards the hatred, the discontent, just the negativity towards Bellamy and his crew, and then it all culminating in Luffy going and dodging a few of his attacks, and then saying, you know what, you want me to land a punch? And as he came at him, just... boom! I mean, put a dent in the side of his face, hit him so damn hard, you know, it was just great. And as I had assumed, that's where the chapter left off, and I had assumed and said in my last review that, you know, I had thought that Bellamy was just knocked the fuck out. That's where the chapter picks up, and Bellamy is. He's laid out. He's laying on the ground. It's great because the ground around him and everything as well is all indented and everything. I mean, and the great thing is that Luffy didn't go and use the Gum Gum rocket or the Gum Gum Gatling gun or anything like that. He didn't use anything special. He just timed it and just knocked him the fuck out, which I think was great. Personally, that was just a great moment for me. So that is how the chapter starts off. We see him just kind of laying there, eyes rolled up into his head and glassed over, you know, just blood coming out of his mouth. Luffy, they show his fist, and he's got some blood, you know, hanging off of his fist, and then, of course, just the indentation of the fingerprints in the side of his face is great. So it's funny because then you kind of get this, like, this moment where Sarquiss is standing there, you know, his first mate, Bellamy's first mate, and he's kind of standing there, and all of a sudden, and he's kind of like reminiscing, not reminiscing, but like almost like a flashback in his head, you know, of when that guy walked into the bar and said, "Hey, you can't believe this. You're the bounty on this kid is higher than you, Bellamy. You know, on both of them is higher than you. You know, him and Zoro." And just that whole thing, he kind of has this quick flashback to it to like 5 minutes ago, and then all of a sudden one of the wanted posters just kind of goes and blows up and like hits him in the face, you know. He looks at it and it's Luffy, you know, it's just a smile and 100 million, and he's just like, you know? so I think it's just real funny. And then Luffy goes and he just said, and everybody's standing around like, oh my god. I mean, Sarquiss is like, boss, you gotta get up, you know. You're one of the heavyweight rookies with a 55 million berry bounty on your head. And this is one of those things that goes to show you that a bounty doesn't mean shit if you can't back it up with the actions. And it just shows, too, I think, how much Luffy has progressed and how far he has come since we saw him, you know, as kind of the bumbling dingaling that he was 200 and some odd chapters ago. So definitely have a lot of respect for that and the progression of him as a character just into this part of the story. So that, oh, get up, you know, and of course Bellamy's not moving. He knocked the fuck out, you know, but he thinks that, you know, maybe he's playing around or something like that. I guess he's hoping beyond hope that, you know, his boss didn't just get laid out. So anyway, so then Luffy goes and he's just like, I want the old man's gold. Now. And they're just like, oh, he's serious, right? So he winds up getting the bag of gold or what have you. He's got it over his shoulder and he's going to walk away. And Sarquiss goes and decides to go and take out his big balls, and he's going and thinking, oh man, you know, it must have been a fluke, right, that he actually knocked out Bellamy. So he goes and he's like, hey, you, yeah, you wait up, you know, no starry-eyed kid in this net's gonna go and you know and just walk away from me and blah blah blah, right? Like he's gonna challenge him, and then one of the other guys is like, no, Bellamy, don't do it, you know. And he goes, and where do you think you're going? And Luffy goes, where? And as he turns and pulls his hand back, Sarquiss' little bitch ass just, and he falls on the ground, you know. And you see in the next panel him on the ground, you know, just like he scampered back and fell. And Luffy's just like, where am I going? And he points up there and he goes, to the sky. And I just thought that was great how it was all set up, you know. So then the next third of the chapter, I guess you would call it, goes and it says the previous afternoon on an island somewhere on the Grand Line. And we go and we are introduced again and see characters that we haven't seen since chapter 100, and that would be Buggy and his crew, Buggy, Alvida and his crew, and they're on this this island, and it looks like there's they show it kind of zoomed out. It looks like it's a skull formation and everything like that, and they're looking, they're in this tunnel in this cave. It's real dark, and Buggy's going and getting everybody all hyped up. Be careful, any type of beast might leap out at you, you know. And I guess they're on the hunt for this, you know, this pirate Bloody John's treasure or whatever, you know. And you're thinking, okay, whatever, now we get to see this guy, you know, and you see Moji and Cabaji, or Cabaji, however you pronounce his name. And and they're all digging in this thing, going to dig in this tunnel. And then all of a sudden it kind of gets lit up, and it looks like this like work crew that comes in there, you know, and they're like, okay, all right, we got to dig this tunnel. And then one of the guys looks at him, he's like, what, are you guys are you the new guys? So I don't know if it was like, if this is just to show how much of an idiot Buggy is, that he was going and like digging where, you know, he thought there was some kind of treasure, but it's actually just some kind of tunnel that was being dug by some kind of work crew, or if he kind of went and, you know, honed in on some kind of treasure that he heard about, but there's some other people there. I'm not really quite sure about that. But it winds up going in, and so they're digging and they're helping and they're working up a good sweat, they say, you know, and then and the Buggy's like, wait, why am I working up a good sweat? So I think it was just they kind of got like lured into going and helping this crew out digging this tunnel. There's no damn treasure, you know. So then they're back later on in the afternoon on the Buggy ship, you know, and we get, you know, somebody going, oh, and there was no treasure there and this and that, you know, and then I think it's Cabaji that says, he says, oh no, you know, I'm sure the boss knew that, you know, or the boss just took us to the wrong island. It's no big deal, you know, and it's that wasn't where Bloody John's treasure is, you know, and then you see Buggy saying something about, what, you said I had a big red nose, you know, so anyway, he's like, well, it's all right, we'll party anyway, you know. But before they do that, they wind up seeing Luffy's bounty, you know, and Zoro's 100 million and 60 million. And they're like, wow, now they're bona fide pirates. I think it's Moji that says they're really bona fide pirates of the Grand Line now, you know, Grand Line pirates. And then Buggy goes and says something to the effect of, oh, that's great. And somebody's like, what are you talking about, you know? And he says, you know, it's like, what do you say? He refers to, oh, it's like when a witch goes and eats a child, you know, she goes and fattens him up first, you know. I just kept thinking like Hansel and Gretel, you know, but whatever, it's just my twisted mind thinking of those type of stories from when I was a kid. But you know, he goes, so they build up a good reputation, and then when we go and take him down, Captain Buggy, then it'll be all the more rewarding, and people will look at us, and it'll build our reputation. And that's really what, you know, what he's kind of going for. And he says, yeah, exactly. So it's real funny, because then they're, oh, let's drink, let's party, you know. And Alvida's just chilling, sitting there, and she's like, what? You guys don't even know where he is. Why are you partying, you know? And they're like, oh, yeah, you know, it's okay to relax a little bit and this and that. And then all of a sudden you see a word bubble that says, well, I know where he is. And he's like, oh, yeah, see, he knows where he is. You flip the page, right? And boom, Ace is there. And you're like, what the hell? Full Fire Fist Ace, Luffy's brother, right? So he's like, you know, yeah, I know where he is. And so then Buggy goes and he's like, what? Well, who are you, you know? And he says, oh, I'm sorry, you know, sorry for my bad manners. You know, my name is Ace and this and that. And he's like, I don't care what your name is. Who are you, you know? And so anyway, somebody on his crew winds up identifying him as Fire Fist Ace, you know, and they know who that is. He's the 2nd Division commander of the Whitebeard pirates, you know. So Ace goes and kind of in the middle of talking with them and what have you, he goes and falls asleep, you know. I guess that's kind of like his thing, because if you remember when we were introduced to him back in Alabasta, he was passed out in his food. Everybody thought he'd been poisoned, or the food was poisoned and he had died. So anyways, so old Fire Fist over there he falls asleep, and then they go and they talk a bit about the Whitebeard pirates, and one of Buggy's crew members, you know, says, oh, okay, great, we can capture him and kill him type of thing, you know. And Buggy's like, no, you don't touch anybody on Whitebeard's pirate crew, you know. First of all, we wind up finding out that Buggy has met him before on the Grand Line, but he goes and he says, you know, Whitebeard is the only man, and this is kind of cool because we haven't seen Whitebeard yet or heard about him, but he says Whitebeard's the only man that ever fought Gol D Rodger and lived, right? So he's the closest one to the One Piece, you know. And they're like, oh, okay, cool. The plot thickens. That's nice, you know. And he says, but he never forgets somebody like hurting or killing one of his men. You know, he'll never forget that or forgive that. So and they're like, well, how do you know so much about him? You know, or it seems like you know a lot about him. But he says, well, yeah, of course. You know, I sailed with him, or I met him on the Grand Line, is what he says. Not sailed with him. I met him on the Grand Line. So then all of a sudden Ace wakes up and he's like, oh, so you know the old boss, huh? And he's like, oh my God, he's awake, you know. And there's one Buggy's crew member that like freaks out every time. So anyways, eyes pop out of his head and says, "Oh, he's awake." So anyway, so he says, okay, well, basically they're cool. They're gonna party. They're gonna hang out together. And then it's funny because it kind of zooms out and just shows the ship while they're partying, and Ace is eating with them, and he's having a good time, you know. Next thing you know, Ace is like, "Oh wow, it's a lion," because he obviously sees Richie, right? And he's Fire Fist Ace. He can obviously create fire. And then all of a sudden, you see the thing, and he goes, "Oh, you know, I jump through this hoop of fire." You know, Buggy's like, "Yeah, do it, Richie." So anyway, they're partying, having a good time, and that's kind of where that portion of it ends off, and then we get into the next third, or the final third of the chapter. So then it takes us to and shows us this page and just kind of this zoomed out thing of this city or whatever, and it's called Sacred Land Marijoa. I believe that's how it's pronounced, but I'm not really sure. Certainly if I need to be corrected, somebody let me know on that. And we see some word bubbles we wind up finding out that this is where the world government is, and that we wind up being introduced to the 5 elders, which are the world government. As a matter of fact, I saved the page here. The 5 elders, supreme leaders of the world government. And prior to that, prior to them actually showing that page, we get just some word bubbles talking about, Shanks has sent out messengers to, they're talking about how it would be catastrophic if Shanks and Whitebeard wound up meeting up, right? And I guess Shanks has, they haven't met yet, but Shanks or made any moves, but Shanks has sent out envoys, messengers, and that's where they kind of need to take care of this before, because it would be catastrophic if Whitebeard and Shanks met. So I have no idea. That's just kind of dangling the carrot for me, because up until this point, I don't know a lot about either one of them and why it would be catastrophic for them to have met. So then you get, this whole page, this double page spread where you get the 5 elders, and they're like, yeah, okay, that's true, Shanks could do a lot of damage, but I don't think his ambitions include world conquest. So I'm like, okay, all right, well, the plot thickens, right? And then another one says we should assess the situation before making any moves. And the thing about these guys is the supreme leaders of the world government. It's funny because you got the one guy over here, he looks like Gandhi. And then you got the other guys that really kind of look like from, obviously from the States over here, but they look like figures in history in here, like a George Washington, like guys with the big beards, the powdered wigs, that sort of thing, That's what they appear to be for me. But I'm assuming that these supreme leaders of the world government, that it's kind of like, I'm assuming that, instead of them having like a president, this is kind of like a cabinet that goes and decides things for the world government, right? But again, I don't know really anything about the world government at all at this point. So, and then we get, never mind that right now. We need to find a new warlord of the sea to replace Crocodile. Mustn't overlook anything. And then this is the line that really got me. The destruction of the 3 great powers would reverberate throughout the world. They must be protected. I have no idea what the 3 great powers are, but apparently Shanks and Whitebeard meeting up would be some heavy shit, and would obviously, they think, lead to the destruction of these 3 great powers. So then basically we wind up having, not basically. So then they go and they wind up talking about, the 7 warlords, or the warlords have been, summoned, but who knows who will actually show up. They're pirates, blah, blah, blah. And then we go and we see that now Monkey D. Luffy is on their radar, because then they go and they're like, listen, what a nuisance Crocodile made of himself, but we can't afford to ignore the one who toppled him, this Monkey D. Luffy fellow. So in addition to his 100 million berry bounty, right, he's now being recognized by what I'm assuming to be the 5 most powerful people in the world government, and he's definitely on their radar right now, having, of course, beaten and defeated, and, of course, the exposed and everything like that, what happened with Sir Crocodile, one of the warlords. And then this is kind of cool, because I don't know about the second guy here, but this one, this Doflamingo, this is a name that I remember being thrown around and heard. So we wind up being introduced to, I heard about Jinbei. I've seen Crocodile, obviously, who's now not a warlord anymore. And then, of course, we've seen, a Mihawk. And that's really all. I don't know who the other warlords of the sea are. So anyway, so they go and they announce, a Navy High Command to Marijoa announcing the arrival of warlords of the sea. And then we get Sir Don Quixote Doflamingo, Sir Don Quixote Doflamingo. And he looks interesting. Looks like he's going to got some ballet slippers on over there. And he definitely looks like an interesting fellow. And Sir Bartholomew Kuma. So I definitely hope I pronounced both of those correct, but that's where the chapter ends off over here. And, you know, I know a lot of people have been talking about 233, 234, 235, those being big chapters, probably because of some of these introductions. I'm assuming that because I've heard that name before, Doflamingo, that's going to play a part somewhere down the road, him being one of these 7 warlords of the sea. You know, and then of course too, just this whole play with the world, the government, and everything else, and now Luffy being on their radar, and then as well, just kind of them alluding to the whole destruction of the 3 great powers, which again I'm not even aware of what they are at this point. However, but you know, the whole Whitebeard and Shanks, you know, going to look to meet at some point, or Shanks trying to meet up with them, whatever the case may be, is obviously something that's big enough to be put on their radar and big enough to you know, to be, you know, part of them. So I definitely like this chapter and how it was broken up. It was nice. You felt like a lot happened in those kind of 3 areas and what have you. And I guess, you know, my chapter question is, because I don't want anybody getting too crazy with me with spoiling things over here, is my chapter question is really going to go, and it's going to kind of get into the whole thing with Buggy and Ace. That's where it's going to go. Ace is looking for Blackbeard from what he told Luffy, and he has to know, or has to have some recollection or know some knowledge when he gets on the ship with Buggy and them that they're looking for Luffy to do him harm. So I kind of want to know, as long as there's not too much spoiler stuff in there, what is Ace's deal? What is his what does he gain? I mean, he's on the search for Blackbeard. What does he gain from going and getting on Buggy's ship, other than maybe being able to, you know, nail Alvida? What is his game as far as getting on there and kind of, you know, meeting up with them and talking about how he knows where Luffy is and everything else? It just doesn't, to me, that part didn't really add up, and I guess that's kind of like my chapter question is what's Ace's, you know, game in all this, or his ploy in all of it, his play. So again, if it's too spoilerific, don't worry about answering it. Not a big deal. Certainly there's plenty of things we can talk about that happen in this chapter, plenty of introductions of characters that I'm assuming are going to be big important characters, albeit now or down the line. But remember to leave your answer in the comments down below. Feel free to hit the thumbs up, the like button if you should think that I deserve it, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. We will look forward to catching all of you in the next one, nation.
I thought it would be nice, since Shanks was actually mentioned in this chapter, to put a picture of good old red-haired Shanks and Luffy in there.